John Lennon did not invent the central idea of Tomorrow Never Knows from scratch. He found it while browsing at Indica, the small London bookshop closely connected to Paul McCartney and the city's underground art scene. The book was The Psychedelic Experience, written by Timothy Leary, Ralph Metzner, and Richard Alpert as a modern guide to psychedelic drugs based loosely on the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Lennon shaped its instructions around surrendering the ego and letting consciousness carry you through an altered state. The lyric is therefore not a fictional story or an account of one event. It's closer to a set of directions, filtered through Lennon's LSD experiences and his growing interest in Eastern ideas.
Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream.
When the Beatles entered EMI Studios on April 6, 1966, Tomorrow Never Knows was called Mark I. It was the first song they attempted for Revolver, even though it would eventually be placed at the very end of the album. Its basic structure was unusually bare, a largely unchanging chord, Paul's bass, George Harrison's tambura drone, and Ringo Starr playing one of the strangest and heaviest drum patterns. The lack of normal chord changes came partly from Indian music, which had shown the Beatles that a song could create movement through rhythm, melody, texture, and drone, rather than constantly moving from one chord to another. Lennon wanted his voice to sound less like a pop singer and more like a distant religious chant coming from a mountaintop. Engineer Geoff Emerick solved the problem by sending part of the vocal through the rotating speaker inside a Leslie cabinet, equipment that was normally connected to a Hammond organ. As the speaker physically turned, Lennon's voice swirled and changed in volume and tone. The backing track also included a guitar part played backward and several homemade tape loops. One loop began as a repeated vocal sound made by McCartney, but changing the tape speed transformed it into the noise listeners have often mistaken for seagulls. The tape loops were not arranged neatly inside a computer or added one at a time. There were physical pieces of tape running around machines in different rooms at Abbey Road. Studio workers kept the loops stretched with pencils while the machines played together, and the Beatles, George Martin, and Emerick brought the sounds in and out through the mixing console. The final combination was performed almost like a live concert, with people operating tape machines and faders at the same time. Because the loops did not begin at perfectly fixed points, repeating the exact performance would have been nearly impossible. Much of what sounds carefully composed was actually controlled chants. The serious, philosophical song finally received its oddly casual title from Ringo Starr. During a 1964 television interview, Ringo had used the phrase while brushing off an incident at the British Embassy in Washington, where an overeager guest had cut some of his hair. Lennon remembered the remark and used it to soften the weight of the lyrics. The title itself never appears in the song. There was one last accident after the album was finished. A small number of the earliest British mono copies of Revolver were pressed with a different mix of Tomorrow Never Knows before the record was quickly recut with the intended version. The Beatles had opened the album sessions with a song built from a drug manual, a single chord, rotating machinery, backward guitar, pencils, and loose strips of tape, and then hit it at the very end of the record.